can sit there and say like, well, brand, B is doing this really well and brand C is doing this. Maybe we can take that and make it ours. It's like, but who are you? You gotta know who you are no matter where you show up. So while it started in a garage as a, CrossFit apparel brand, we're very quickly realizing that Born Primitive has potential to be so much more.
It's not just an arbitrage of acquiring a customer, it's really bringing the customer in the right way and bringing them along with you and allowing them to have a voice in where the brand is ultimately going.
The experience of your brand needs to be seamless regardless of where your customer is finding you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Brilliant Commerce Podcast, where I get a chance to sit down with the brightest minds in commerce and unpack the secrets behind the industry's most iconic or soon-to-be iconic brands. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Claire Strohl, Senior VP of Brand and Marketing at Born Primitive. Claire, welcome to the pod.
Thank you so much, Brian. Great to be here today.
Yeah, thanks so much. Where am I catching you today?
So I'm in Virginia Beach and we are full-fledged starting the budding in spring and everything. So the allergies are hitting me kind of hard. So if you hear that in my voice, disregard. It's just the allergies.
Yeah, we got you coming through loud and clear. I miss the East Coast. We talked about this sort of in the warm up to this. I'm now on the West Coast, but East Coaster by origin. So miss the seasons.
Yeah.
Tell me, I love to ask this question just to get going. In 3 minutes or less, like tell me your origin story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a little bit of a non-traditional background coming to marketing. I was actually a criminal justice major in school with the intent of becoming a lawyer. And I actually had started in the business school. And after taking some finance classes was like, actually, I really like this business law thing. This is pretty cool for me. And so switched paths. And, after spending a couple years pursuing that degree in my final semester, I was like, you know what? I don't think that law school is for me. I don't think that practicing in the criminal system is for me. And so like a lot of new grads, I took a sales job out of school and kind of got into the cog of big business and learned pretty quickly that I wanted to get my hands dirtier and understand more about actually being in the different fields within a business, and was presented with a really unique opportunity to run a very, very small direct consumer e-commerce brand that really existed only on Amazon when I came on to run it. And then, over the next 5 years, scaled that to have its own website, multiple different SKUs where it had been a single product business. And that's where I kind of learned everything about digital marketing. And, from there, I ended up going into an agency to get a little bit more structure. Running your own business when you're in your early 20s is pretty daunting. And I learned a lot of things, made a lot of mistakes. And so when I got into agency, I just really found my niche within storytelling and creative and brand, and merging that with a lot of the digital marketing tactics that I learned from running an e-commerce business pretty much by myself. And yeah, from there, my husband and I got married, and then we were moving around, and I saw a really unique opportunity to join Born Primitive, doing athlete management and sponsorships. And then I've been at Born Primitive for the last 2 years, and have just continued to kind of grow within the space of marketing.
That's super cool. There's so many similarities with our backgrounds. Like I did agency as well for a really long time, out of school. I had sort of a non-traditional path and thought I was going to go down the business path. I was going to be an investment banker. And suddenly I'm in the agency world, and then the brand world, and then the commerce world. So I want to circle back to that, but I do want to just ask a couple of questions about Born Primitive. So maybe a fun fact, I bought my first pair of Born Primitive shoes about 6 months ago.
Okay.
I was looking for a pair of shoes to replace a worn out pair of Nobles, and I wanted something new and different. And that's actually how I had found Noble. I was living in New York, and I wanted something that wasn't Nike and wasn't Reebok. And there was this challenger brand that was up and coming, and they served me a bunch of ads, and I eventually bought their shoe, and then I wore out their shoe. And now they sort of feel like the incumbent. I was like, well, who's the next up and coming challenger? And I was like, this is a really cool story. And I did a little bit of research. Reviews were great, bought the shoes, have loved them. But I don't know that much yet about the brand. And so maybe can you do this sort of the similar thing, 3 minutes or less? Tell us a little bit about Born Primitive and why you love being there.
Yeah, absolutely. So Born Primitive started out of a garage in 2014 with co-founders Bear Hanlon and Mallory Riley. So they had a real passion for CrossFit and noticed that their gear was not servicing them in the way that they needed. So it actually, the first product was a pair of snatch shorts. Bear was snatching. And if you've done a snatch before, you know that when you pull the bar, you're supposed to pop it up off your hip. And depending on where you hit, it can lead to bruising. So he had a seamstress make him basically from a pair of like football compression pants, a pair of padded snatch shorts, took him to the gym, and people were really interested in them. And that kind of started this project of like, hey, the CrossFit community needs gear that fits a more muscular build. And Mallory had a similar kind of product idea that the bras that she was wearing really were digging in hard to her lats and her traps. And she's like, us ladies are in the gym, we're building all this muscle. We need product that fits our bodies. And it really timed very perfectly with kind of the rise of CrossFit. 2014 to 2017 was such a big boom within that space. And really the customer response within what started as just their gym environment was overwhelming. And then over the next 10 years, bring us to where we are year 11. This year, it just continued to really hit home within that CrossFit market and then expand outside of it. So, born out of CrossFit, expanding well beyond CrossFit at this point, and of course, new category entries such as the Savage One, our outdoor and our tactical brands have really started to shape the landscape of what the future of Born Primitive looks like. So while it started in a garage as a, CrossFit apparel brand, we're very quickly realizing that Born Primitive has potential to be so much more.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. Like I've been thinking about brands as like products that you want to be friends with. Like I'm really excited I discovered this thing, and I'm really excited to tell my friend that I discovered it. And it feels like Born Primitive has some of that. And so it's interesting to hear that you're expanding kind of beyond CrossFit. As you think about brand building and storytelling, how much of that is your community taking you there, that they're not just interested in wearing you in the gym in their CrossFit community, but, they're hiking on the weekends, or they want to wear something when they're traveling across the country and they kind of want to be comfortable. How much is it this balance between you leading them into new categories and with a community, you listening and meeting them where they are?
Oh, absolutely. And I have to say, I want to give like a huge shout out to our customers at Born Primitive, because they are so vocal with their feedback. And we take that so seriously, and that they offer all the time, like, hey, this is a product that I really need. Like, I'm a mom and I'm busy and I'm going to the gym and hitting my 1 hour, WOD at the box. And then I have to go and I've got to run errands and I've got to pick up kids, or they're, a military operator, law enforcement. And they're like, hey, this is part of my job is to be fit, and I need something to service me so I can do my job better. And their feedback has been instrumental in shaping our product path moving forward. And a piece about the brand that's also very unique that I left out in kind of the backstory is, Bear is a former Navy SEAL. We have a ton of veterans, former first responders, and veteran spouses on our staff. It's a huge foundational pillar of who we are as Born Primitive. And that also just the makeup of our staff, who really are our customers as much as the customers that we serve out in the community. That's also shaped kind of our product assortment moving forward. Is, hey, when I was in the teams, I had product that was not meeting my needs as an operator. And so we can ideate, take things that we learn from the fitness space to make that operational gear so much more effective in the field. And we're really seeing that category take off. Instrumental, the customers giving us that feedback of what they need.
Yeah, I think that's super cool. There's this balance, I think, that you need to strike between taking instruction from the community and just building what they're asking for, but also being sort of like thought leaders, so, okay, you have this problem. I think that the short example is a great example. So you're getting this bruising. And so like, I'm feeling this firsthand. I'm building a product for myself. I'm inspired by the feedback that I'm getting from the community. So they feel like they're a part of it, but ultimately they're buying the product from you because you're innovators, you're on the front lines, you're sort of developing this, you have a point of view. I think that's super powerful. So maybe we'll circle back to community. You said you used this term, digital marketing, and it struck me that we've been talking so far for the first couple of minutes here about what I would put in the category of traditional marketing, brand building, being out there in the community. How much longer do you think digital marketing is called digital marketing, or how long until we drop the digital and it just becomes part of the bucket of things that someone in your role needs to think about?
Yeah, I mean, we could go on about this for hours. I have such a passion about just the digital space and what our reality is now that so much of our reality is digital, right? Like
Yeah.
it truly is the umbrella of marketing now. I think that what we used to look at as digital marketing, it's SEO and it's content and blogs, and it has evolved so much, and brands are all going to have digital presence moving forward, even if they've started outside of the digital space. So I think that they really go hand in hand, and it's more like where in the funnel are those marketing efforts reaching the customer on their journey, because there are certain, tactics that can be utilized on the site that are hitting a customer at that stage of their journey. But like the customer might find you on another digital channel where they're not there yet. And so you have to meet them where they're at. And some of that can be more brand and storytelling and creative, and which platform are they finding you on? I mean, it's really the nature of our reality now. It's not marketing and digital marketing. It's like we live in a digital world.
We live in a digital world. I find it fascinating how quickly the landscape has changed too, where you also had said direct to consumer, and you'd work at a small brand where their presence was effectively Amazon. I might challenge that and say, like, well, Amazon isn't direct to consumer. To me, direct to consumer is I'm able to have a direct conversation with my customer, and I'm able to get some of that first party data, and I can use that data to make their next experience on one of my digital channels better, or I can use some of that first party data to make their experience with my physical product better. But that also sort of like unpacking direct to consumer a little bit more. I hear all the time that direct to consumer is dead, which I think is absolutely hilarious. I think we're just getting started. I also believe that every brand in the world has to be a direct to consumer brand. That is where you're going to get that first party data, but it doesn't mean that that's going to exclusively be your channel for distribution. So again, with your brand and marketing hat on, like, how do you think about balancing the investments that you're making in sort of direct to consumer on your own properties versus showing up where your customers are, and meeting them there?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, I think that the experience of your brand needs to be seamless regardless of where your customer is finding you. And that's where the power of brand is so important. Is if you show up as brand A on this channel, but then when a customer sees you in store and you look like brand Z, they're going to be like, wait, I'm so confused. Does this brand know me? Do they get me? Why should I be shopping them over this brand that I've known for forever, especially coming into this space as, a newer brand and trying to take our share of the market. So I think that it's paramount that you understand who you are. And when it's such a saturated marketplace with so many different brands, and you can sit there and say like, well, brand, B is doing this really well and brand C is doing this. Maybe we can take that and make it ours. It's like, but who are you?
Yeah.
You gotta know who you are no matter where you show up.
Right. Oh my gosh, Claire, that is gold. I think as I think about the landscape, how it's sort of changed, like we went through this era of performance marketing, which felt like I can acquire a customer if I spent enough money or I got them the right offer. It was much more about optimizing there. And I think we sort of lost the script on storytelling and traditional brand building and being authentic and meeting your customer where they are. And that's difficult sometimes to attribute an ROI to. What is my ROAS on this campaign where I'm just really trying to cement my value so that when I do show up with perhaps an offer for you, you're like, yeah, effing right. I love this brand because they've really done that. And that's also something that I think is sort of funny. We sort of feel like e-commerce is a solved problem or commerce is a solved problem. Like this is what you do and that's what you do and that's what you do. But I'm sure you can tell the listeners here that playbook is evolving as quickly as it was written a couple of years ago. And one of the things that I've noticed in looking at some of the ads that I've since been served because I am now a customer is I feel like they are striking that right balance between something that is transactional and something that is storytelling. So from your time at agency to now being in-house, how have you rewritten your own playbook around performance marketing and digital marketing and brand building? Let's see if we can build on more of that goal that you left for us a couple of minutes ago.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the things that I took away from agency that I really was excited about going back in-house to client side is being able to go deeper into all the different levels of the communication throughout the marketing cadence of the year. Like when you're an agency, you're very much kind of moment to moment. Yes, you might be doing some evergreen things, but it's like you're so pigeonholed to this, like this moment and the next moment, and it's centered. You're just missing the whole story. So I was really excited to get my hands dirty in like the evergreen cadence of a brand. And what I found in coming into BP, and what I think that we really needed to develop, was almost our internal agency voice.
Yeah.
Had to be developed because we know the brand. And I think that's sometimes the challenge with agency and client is you're only experiencing the client in these really kind of controlled environments. You don't get the full taste of the brand. And that's where sometimes there can be that dynamic between client and agency where it's like, the content's great, but you're missing the brand. So I was really passionate about coming into BP and saying, I want an internal agency that can bang out great content that gets the brand on a really intimate level because you are the brand, but do so super efficiently. And what we've been able to create within our marketing team and our creative team is the talent that is able to ideate and think really innovatively about content and how to storytell, along with all of the access to the metrics that we need to be able to make strategic, insightful content, and do so really efficiently so that we have a lot of diversity. So you're talking about, we've got transactional content, we've got storytelling content, and that's by design. So we build our content funnel that we're hitting the customer journey. This customer's motivated by price. This one's motivated by education. This one's motivated by, holy cow, I want to be entertained. Well, we're creating that funnel month over month over month. Yes, based on promotional moments or new collection drops or whatever, but it's really honing in on like, how do we convey both who we are as a brand, the products that we have, and meet each customer where they're at in their stage of meeting our brand. And I think we do that through creating that kind of cohesive team system within Board Primitive.
That is really fascinating. And so there's this mindset of you've created an internal agency within BP, but that understands the brand values at a really deep level. Do you work with agencies today? Do you augment your team with agencies?
Absolutely. So, and that's where, I think having the right agency partner is so important. And we have worked with a lot of agencies prior to my time with BP, certainly in my time at BP. I think that we've really streamlined our agency partnerships over the last couple of years, where it's like, hey, this partner really gets this segment of our business, and they're taking something that would require 1 to 2 positions for us internally, that they're the experts, let's let them be the experts, and they're going to add value to us in a way that we need and do it efficiently. There are areas where it's like, hey, we know that internally, with the pace at which we move, we're obviously a very fast growing brand. Our brand's evolving very quickly with new category development. Like, we need some people in-house that can really respond in time to everything that's happening in the moment. So yeah, absolutely still using agency partners for various verticals and honestly, various categories of advertising within our business. But then a lot of it is happening in-house now.
Yeah. Do you think the fact that you came from agency makes it harder or easier for agencies to work with you? Are you tough on them?
I would say that I have high standards for sure,
Yeah.
but I also think that I get their challenges a lot better than if you've not worked within an agency. That communication and how to brief correctly and how to be clear with your expectations. I mean, every person who's worked within an agency has been on the side of the client being like, okay, I want to be wowed.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, what will wow you? Something new.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, here's 5 ideas. Do you like them? Yeah, these all sound great. And then, you go through development and you storyboard and then you present, and the agent, the client's like, well, none of this is what I wanted. So I think I'm able to deliver really clear direction, but I definitely do have high standards. But I think that's for agency and internal teams.
Yes. What used to drive me nuts is when we'd present 3 or 4 options and they were all like independent directions. They're like, cool, we're just going to take one element from this one element from that one element from that one. I'm like, well, that's not what they were designed to do, but okay. Like, I think being open-minded about it. Yeah, I've always found agencies. Yeah, I mean, I did agency for 20 years. So I think like I loved your answer. I think on the one hand, I'm going to have super high standards when we work with an agency. And on the other hand, I know how hard it is to be an agency and to do great work and to be a really good partner. And we use agencies at Chord as well. I think like it's a great tool to be able to call on these folks who have the expertise and get to see challenges across multiple customers. And as much as I love being in-house and exactly what you said, being able to spend more time on something, go deeper, really understand the brand is an incredible opportunity. Having that perspective of working across the same challenge on a multitude of different industries or companies is really unique. And so I'm always trying to find agencies that are doing that, but that show up, that don't have a playbook, that don't tell me my business and just be like, actually, it doesn't matter what the brief is. We're just going to do our thing. I think the best agencies in the world have an opinion, have a way of working, but are deeply curious and want to get to know you and want to get to know the brand and be like, cool, these things that we've done before, we're going to leverage them to deliver great results, but we're going to be open-minded to change our approach so that it's unique to you. And it's like almost everyone should work at an agency before going in-house or vice versa. But I see it all the time. I used to think my story was unique, but I keep running into folks like you. And it's like, actually, I think this is what makes the marketing world work.
It is, you know what it is. And I think a lot of the time too, if you spent a lot of time in agency and, I didn't spend a ton of time, but it was really meaningful time that I did spend. And I felt like it was such a growing, tenure for me at my time at agency. One of the challenges then when you go back to client side is like, you were able to be so focused on this one objective, multiple objectives, of course, at a time, but you're in this really creative space, depending on which vertical you're within an agency. And when you go back into the client side, it's like, okay, well, you're juggling so many different priorities. And like some of them in your brain are so dull, right? Because it's like business as usual type stuff. You're like, no, I want to create. I want to be like the next disrupting campaign on the internet. I want to go viral. And it's like those moments you still have time to think through and ideate and brainstorm on the client side, but they're sandwiched in between all of this productivity and, bottom line type driving activity that you really genuinely, it can be really hard to transition back into that environment. Now I've loved it. I've loved being back on the client side. It presents a whole new realm of challenges. But yeah, I've definitely seen people struggle with that agency to client transition.
Well, that's a really interesting thread to pull on. I think in marketing or in commerce generally, there is necessarily some blocking and tackling that you need to do. And like you need to be able to execute. You need to make sure that you're being thorough and thoughtful. And of course, everyone wants to be creative. Like just give me the creative thing to do, but you have to sort of earn the right to get there. So as I think about the building teams or the teams that you have been a part of or that you've built and you've managed, whether you're trying to inspire folks on the agency side or your own internal team, like how do you think about, creating these high performance teams and making sure that they're dotting their I's and crossing their T's and they're doing the work that isn't necessarily exciting, but inspiring that creativity at the same time?
It's my favorite topic. I love people development. I love people development and I love people. And honestly, that's why I love marketing, because marketing is people. You understand people, you can market pretty much anything. My number one priority when I start to develop a team is like, truly, it's assess where do people's eyes light up? Where does their talent fly? And what are they most efficient at? And then you can start to plug and play. Okay, this is what I need to build a robust team. These are the positions I need. This person fills this, but right now they're actually poorly positioned here. I'm going to give them a project to develop into this. And then that's presentation of like, no, this person has so much more potential. We need to move them. They need to be promoted or laterally shifted to a different vertical or what have you. And then I challenge the status quo always. I think that that's one thing when you look at how a brand is going to develop and how a team's going to develop. If you've been doing the same process for, it could even be months, right? But if you're not evaluating the efficacy of that process, you are becoming stagnant. And so it doesn't mean that you should be, double-minded like a squirrel and just constantly like chasing the next, shiny object, nut, whatever. But I really think the assessment is so important when you have a group of people who the talent's there and the drive is there. You've got to place them right. And then you've got to find those inefficiencies in the current process, remove them so that they can dive deeper into their talent zone and really just build the brand forward.
Yeah, that's amazing. It strikes me as that's a pretty similar process that I imagine that you would deploy for managing a campaign. It's thinking, not doing the status quo, and looking for those opportunities and constantly reevaluating. So, no surprise that you're a great people manager and also a marketer. That's awesome. Um, yeah, maybe curious about marketing generally. You've done an awful lot on the agency side, and now, like, obviously back in house at BP. Is there one campaign that stands out to you for either it surprised you in how poor it did, or like excited you in how the results that it actually delivered? I'd love to sort of hear from you and unpack those stories, good or bad.
Okay, well, we can get into a lot of failed campaigns, but I want to talk about the most recent one that just truly it blew us away at Born Primitive. And the reason I'm going to focus on it is because it also delivered a huge impact to the community. So our Veterans Day is a huge initiative for Born Primitive every year. Obviously, we're veteran owned. We foundational pillars to give back to our service members. And every Veterans Day, we do some kind of promotion to give back either to a charity or to service-oriented organizations. So this last year, we had a unique opportunity to partner with an organization called Forgive Co. And we were focused on paying off veteran medical bill debt. So that was a cause that was a little bit unique for us. Typically, we're using this activation to support charities. This time we were supporting the individual. So we built a very robust campaign that, we were donating 100% of our profits from Veterans Day weekend to achieve $5 million of veteran medical bill debt paid off. Our customers blew us away. And part of it was, I think, just the reach of the campaign was enormous. It was very much omni-channel. We focused really heavy on story and education too, of just how little people understand how much the veteran community can struggle after their service time is over. I say our customers overwhelmed us because the response that we got on the site for people that came out to shop and support, we were able to more than double our initial pledge, and we ended up paying off $11 million in veteran medical
Wow.
Yes. So it was almost 6,000 families that were impacted right before the holiday season. They were getting their letters in the mail that this medical bill that you have been, just brutally worried about for however long is no longer there. And like we had one person in particular who we removed $183,000 of medical bills from his debt. So when you talk about like building a campaign and knowing your objective, our objective of that campaign was educate people about what's happening in the veteran community, show them that they have an opportunity to come and support the cause and give back to these people who've given so much to them, and really focus on that story. And just the response was incredible. I mean, it blew us away.
That's a heartwarming story. That's truly amazing. And it for me, it's like, that's the power of commerce. It's not always about, I increased our conversion rate by 5%. And I'm so super focused on ROAS. Like, don't get me wrong, those things are important. Yes. So it sounds like here, commercially, super successful from a brand building point of view. It hit all of the marks, but then there's a feel good story to it as well. Like, it's an opportunity to give back to the community. And we talked about that at the outset here. Community seemed like it's a really important part of what you're doing at BP. So wow, what a story.
Yeah, it's been incredible. And it's one that, I'm not going to drop any spoilers here, but 2025 Veterans Day, we're already working on now. So we have plans just based on the response that we got last year to really take this and try to take it to the moon. To do even more good this year and continue to really help this community of people. I think what was so unique about it for us was, we got to speak with some of the veterans that benefited from the debt relief effort, and just their stories were so moving. And it's like, as people in business, like you said, we can get so narrowly focused on the bottom line and the top line and, how's our LTV and are people coming and shopping this new product category? It's like, that's all important, but it's what it enables us to do in the community that I think at BP is just really special.
I think that's what builds a really durable brand. It's not just about like blowing it out in a single quarter. It's making these investments and solidifying the community that is going to be there to back you, not just today, but 5 years from now. Like, I love using the term iconic brands. And I think it's these moments where it's not just an arbitrage of acquiring a customer, it's really bringing the customer in the right way and bringing them along with you and allowing them to have a voice in where the brand is ultimately going. And so what strikes me about this campaign and the story that you told is it feels like BP is creating its own moment. So, Veterans Day becomes your Black Friday, let's say. And I have plenty of thoughts around Black Friday and like what has gone on in the last 10 years there.
Oh, yeah.
It's nice to have something that is uniquely yours, that is born out of something that feels really authentic to the brand. And so that's really fascinating. I want to congratulate you for the execution of that. And I'm excited to see what happens this year for Veterans Day.
Thank you. November's a crazy month for us between Black Friday,
yes,
Monday, and Veterans Day. So yeah.
Well, I mean, good news. Black Friday is no longer in November. It starts in October, and it's a 2-month long adventure. Well, at least that's my experience nowadays with it.
Yes, I have a lot of experience on that, but.
Yeah. Well, that's come back onto the pod again, and we'll talk all about Black Friday. Can I ask one more question about that campaign, and maybe sort of shifting gears to data? I remember my time at Glossier when we did a couple of things that were sort of interesting in the community space, and we didn't intend for those to become ways of acquiring customers, but almost like organically, we noticed that became this new acquisition channel, and we would look at that cohort of customers differently from some of the customers that we would acquire through traditional means. I'm curious. So it sounds like the campaign was a huge success. I would imagine you had an awful lot of returning customers, but new customers. Are you tracking that cohort of people who discovered the brand through that campaign differently, and how are they performing over time?
Absolutely. So I'm actually really happy you asked this question because we were just talking about this a couple of months ago, kind of a postmortem of just Q4 in general, but more specifically this campaign. And we had a couple of brand campaigns last year that were along this line. We did a Savage one special edition for D-Day that was similarly benefiting veterans. And then we had this Veterans Day initiative. So we pulled out the launch day from the D-Day campaign, as well as our biggest new customer day for the Veterans Day initiative was Bear, who's our founder and CEO. He went on Fox and Friends on the Sunday morning segment, which he had done the prior year. The amount of traffic that we had on the site during that Fox and Friends segment was absolutely insane. So we actually took specifically that window of customers to say, okay, like this, obviously mass exposure being on a major news network, talking about this campaign, what's the value of these people that's come in on the 60-day LTV? And what we found, interestingly, is that both on the launch day of the D-Day campaign and the people who came in on the Fox and Friends day, they were consistent with our average customer LTV throughout the year, which honestly, my expectation was this is more of a promotional moment. Now it's an on-brand promotional moment, but it's a moment in time. So I'm going to imagine that these people, if they came in and say they wanted to shop the cause and they bought a t-shirt or something like that, they likely aren't going to come back, but consistent with kind of our general customer LTV for the average for the year, it was right on par. And so I think that was like a really interesting takeaway for me, and even a little bit slightly higher for the full window of the D-Day campaign that we launched. That actually had a higher LTV by, I think, $1, 60-day LTV than our average for the year.
Cool. I mean, to me, it warms my heart that you're looking at data and thinking about things like that, like data curious. I like to ask this question too, data driven or data informed?
Ooh. Honestly, I'm going to say data informed more than anything. Like I say that with this caveat is that data is so important, and then we have to analyze it and draw insights from it. But you can tell a lot of different stories with one data set. And so I think you have to understand what you're looking at, and you've got to be very informed on what the implication of that is. But you also have to be willing to occasionally trust your gut and trust maybe some of your other feelers, because we're all, if you've been in the space, like you get the space, right? So you've got to be able to judge the data that's being spit out with some of the intuition that you have just kind of in your gut from your overall experience.
Yeah. I didn't mean for it to be a trick question. And I'm not sure if there was a right answer, but if that was a absolutely fantastic answer. I see it the exact same way. It's one thing if you're Amazon. I think Amazon is it is a great brand, but it's different. I am expecting that brand to be data driven and make it easier for me in the millions of products and SKUs they have to find the thing that I'm looking for. That to me feels data driven, and it feels kind of clinical, but that's okay. That's what I expect from their brand. But you are a brand and you have this connection with your customer. And so I think it's great that you are in command of your numbers and you're looking at those numbers and you're being informed, but the trusting your gut, like that's what brand building is all about. Like we might do something that the numbers would tell us not to do, but we think that our intuition tells us that's what our community wants. And that's what's going to sort of strengthen our position in the market. And I love that answer. And I think we have to, we as brand builders and marketers really have to continue to strike that balance now more than ever when we think about this sort of the arrival of these agentic workflows and AI. And I'm very worried that we might lose the script, that it might become more clinical. And I think the best brands in the world are going to figure out how to continue to use data to be data informed or to leverage AI to give their teams superpowers. But ultimately, that human connection that you have as the marketer with the stories that you're telling and the connection that creates with your customer, I think that's been around since the dawn of commerce. And I don't think that the arrival of AI is suddenly going to change that. So maybe in the couple of minutes we have left, what are you excited about for 2025 and beyond? There was hints about a new campaign for Veterans Day, which sounds really exciting. But yeah, maybe we talk about what you're excited about. I'd love to learn a little bit more about how you are encouraging your team to lean into being data informed, and is AI on your roadmap? What can we leave the audience with in the last couple of minutes?
Oh yeah, I think the challenge that me and my team are struggling with right now is just volume, right? The pace of innovation is so fast and the volume that's required to keep up is enormous. When we're like specifically talking about content, and at BP, we have a pretty robust marketing cadence and we launch a lot of products every year. So it's how do we keep up and make sure that new product is hitting our audience at the right time and the right way without sacrificing other key products and other categories that also need to grow? And I think for us, and where this, relates to AI, is like finding those areas within our business where we can create massive economies of scale by becoming more efficient with kind of those BAU processes that are going to allow for sort of this passive, optimization of our customer experience while being able to then devote really strategic thinking time and creative time into which content matters the most and how to get it out within the right amount of time. And so I think that's what a lot of brands are going to struggle with over the next few years, is just that equation of bandwidth plus, time to think strategically equals my output and my volume. And how can I cut down on those little processes that can be made really efficient so that we can spend more time doing the human work of understanding people, how to connect with them and create badass content that, shocks, awes, amazes, and converts.
That is an absolutely perfect way to end this. I adore that answer. Thank you very, very much. Claire, this was amazing. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'd love to do this again. I feel like the notes on my desk here, there's so many additional questions that I could ask you and want to ask you, but we're out of time for today. So thanks again for joining me. I will be looking out for the Veterans Day promotion this year and continuing to cheer you and the entire team on from behind the scenes. Yeah.
Thank you. So much. Such a pleasure to talk to you today. Thanks, Bryan.
All right. Thanks.